tape one springtime day, Hannah and Ryan met in a bar. The student, who was in her final year of college, was waiting for her supervisor to become available while sitting at a neighboring establishment. Ryan proceeded to eat lunch at the first cafe he encountered. He didn't know what was near the office very well because he had recently switched from his previous job to one that paid higher. Hannah was flattered when Ryan, who was 10 years her senior, asked if he could keep her company and get to know her. Ryan seemed quite substantial. From the moment they started communicating, their relationship developed very quickly. After living together for 6 months, they got married 3 months later. She now resided in her husband's comfortable apartment rather than an outdated, rundown hostel. Ryan stated she could take her time looking for a job and he would handle everything. She accepted this offer with gratitude and made the decision to unwind and take a vacation from everything for a while. Hannah's extended vacation stretched over several years, but her husband was fine with it. Hannah informed Ryan at dinner that she was going to her best friend's birthday party next week. Eva and Hannah had been friends since their first year of college. Eva chose her favorite bar to host a get-together for her friends. Ryan was accustomed to his wife taking holidays predominantly with her friends, so he made plans to spend that evening with his own mates. On Friday night, she slipped into her favorite festive dress and set off for the get-together. Her friends were already gathered, waiting for her at the table. They welcomed her with joyful exclamations before starting to congratulate the birthday girl as a group. In the middle of the evening, when the drinks were not so little, the friends saw that 2 guys who studied with them at the same university entered the bar. They were 2 brothers named Adam and Sam. Hannah and Eva looked at each other meaningfully. Since freshman year, they had both been obsessed with them and were constantly figuring out how to get the attention of the most attractive young men in the institute. Although Hannah had feelings for Adam and Eva for Sam, their relationships never worked out. The boys then confined themselves to a brief fling. Soon, the brothers noticed them and recognized their former classmates. Taking advantage of the moment, the guys approached and started a conversation. They then offered to have a drink together. As a result, the former classmates were soon socializing as longtime friends. About 2 hours flew by during this fascinating conversation. By 10 in the evening, the other friends started to trickle away. Each of them had a husband or a boyfriend. Throughout the evening, Eva flirted with Sam. It was clear they were getting along well, and she was thoroughly enjoying her birthday celebration. She didn't want any gossip spread about her. Of course, she liked having this man around. She'd been unrequitedly in love with Adam for a long time. And as a student, she had never dreamed that one day they would be smiling at each other and talking so freely. At some point, she noticed her friend's cunning look. Next, in that moment, her friend leaned in and murmured in her ear. The woman looked perplexed at her friend, and the latter approached her. The guys were heading out, and I did not want our night to end just yet. How about the 4 of us head to my place? We can pick up some more drinks on the way, Eva proposed with a lively tone. The brothers quickly agreed with enthusiastic nods, but Hannah felt a wave of tension. She recognized the precariousness of the situation. Being married, these gatherings with men might not cast her in the best light. For a few moments, she was gripped by apprehension while the others tried to convince her. Eventually, she gave in to their pleas as the wine drowned out the voice of conscience. They got into a taxi and headed to Eva's residence. On the way, Adam stroked Hannah's knee, who had decided to give herself over to the flow of events and didn't mind. At home, the boys mixed drinks, put on some music, and their small company continued to have a good time. After an hour or so, the hostess of the party approached her tipsy friend and whispered, "We've concocted an intriguing idea, listen." Sam, Adam, and Eve will head to the bedroom. But given Adam's long-standing affection for Hannah, Eve decided that she too would be interested in joining them. Faced with such an unexpected offer, Hannah looked at her friend perplexed. The very thought of it was unacceptable to her. On the other hand, she was acutely aware of Adam, her former love, who had been casting glances her way throughout the night, his eyes seemingly devouring her presence, and she found herself gratified by such attention. At some point, her drunken mind began to paint explicit pictures in her head of her and Adam. Eva was encouraging her to have an adventure, and the idea streaked across Hannah's mind. When else would such an opportunity arise? Her husband was very conservative, favoring only the most mundane and familiar routines. And what were the chances he would find out about tonight's events? After all, it was just a singular occurrence. She quickly emptied her glass in a single bold swig. "Let's give it a go. she declared, drawing grins from the group. After the event, Hannah hastily showered, dressed, and headed home. Fortune was on her side. She made it back before her husband, stepping into bed. She feigned deep sleep by the time he arrived. Ryan did not arrive home until half an hour later. He swiftly cleaned his face and went to bed after seeing that his wife had already fallen asleep. He didn't notice anything strange that evening. A month elapsed. One day, Ryan said that his friends were going on vacation at a cottage in the country for the weekend. They were invited to join them. Hannah had only seen her spouse's company a couple of times. All the people present were significantly older than her, causing a certain level of discomfort when she had to spend extended periods with them. Her wife was willing to go, but she asked to take Eva. It would make her feel more comfortable around strangers. Once everyone at the gathering had a drink, communication seemed to become less strained. Out of nowhere, someone proposed to play a game. The rules were simple. One by one, you had to say something that you had never done in your life. And if you found someone who had already done it, you had to drink. Everyone was laughing and having fun until it shifted when a friend admitted to never having shared an intimate moment with more than one partner simultaneously. Everyone exchanged awkward glances, except for Eva, who boldly downed her shot. Everyone shouted, "Oh, interesting," and erupted into a barrage of questions. Ryan abstained from drinking that night and observed the game from a distance. Catching his wife's eye after her friend's surprising disclosure, he found her averting her gaze, her cheeks tinged with a flush of red. Ryan remained baffled as he observed his wife. On the other hand, Eva seemed to enjoy the attention and started to narrate the events of that night. "I had a birthday. It's back in college. I had a crush on a guy. He was with his brother, and I decided it was worth a shot." At that moment, a realization dawned on Ryan. Could it have been recently, after the very holiday his wife had gone on? Then why was she so confused by her friend's words? When everyone was already pretty drunk, and Eva was trying to flirt with one unmarried guest, Ryan approached. He noticed that the woman was in such a state that she was not in control of herself. Thus, he probed about her most recent birthday and the events that ensued. His persistence soon paid off, with her friend betraying Hannah by telling what she did. Leaving the cottage alone, Ryan didn't want to see his wife after such revelations about her. He made the journey home, resolved to end his marriage to Hannah for good. The man did not hesitate, despite his doubts and procrastination. Before long, the couple had finalized their divorce. Hannah offered no excuses or attempts at reconciliation. The outcome was set in stone. Hannah, along with all her possessions, was removed from Ryan's apartment. She asked to stay with her friend for a while, and Eva couldn't refuse her. She believed the divorce to be the most tragic event in her recent life. Yet an unforeseen development occurred. It turned out that, contrary to their agreement, Adam and Sam had proudly told everyone they knew about their experiment that night, rather than keeping it a secret. And here the women were in for a surprise. Soon they began to write and call men they did not know with various indecent proposals. The volume of such intrusions grew so intolerable that the friends were compelled to change their phone numbers. Hannah, who had a degree but no experience, was left to deal with the consequences. This experience, she had to hunt for a job because her husband was no longer providing for her. She was not the most desirable candidate in her field, so for a while she had to work as a cashier in a nearby store. She worked long shifts before returning home, crying as she collapsed into her bed. It dawned on her how foolish she had been. She had lost a man who loved and cared for her just because she was curious and wanted to explore new things. She spent a long time regretting what she had done, but she could not turn back the clock. Act now for the next story. Stephen was 34 years old when he crossed paths with 23-year-old Jessica. Charmed by his mature approach to courtship and his financial security, Jessica quickly became a net. It was she who initiated the conversation about marriage. Stephen gave in to her entreaties. He reasons that 34 years was a decent age to settle down. 7 years passed by in a flash. The pair had seen and experienced a great deal together. Their marriage was strengthened even more by all of this. However, time alters everything even when we are unaware of it. Jessica grew weary of the repetitive routine of their domestic existence and yearned for variety. She suggested they introduce some novelty and excitement into their intimate life. Initially, Stephen accepted everything as he appreciated Jessica's ideas and excitement. However, as time went on, her suggestions became more and more strange. Thus, when she broached the idea of bringing another couple into their intimacy, Stephen raised his voice, imploring her to refrain from making such suggestions before him henceforth. Jessica apologized, saying that she understood everything. Stephen had rejoiced in their mutual understanding. But following this episode, he sensed an increasing chasm between them, that Jessica was growing more and more distant from him. Stephen began to observe that whenever he inquired about her day, Jessica responded with a faint smile, attributing her fatigue to the day's exertions or the weight of work-related considerations. He noticed that his wife started spending more time on the phone, attributing it to work issues. However, every time he approached, she discreetly turned the screen away. This shift in behavior sparked a sense of alarm in Stephen. In Tetsten's piece here, one evening, he deliberately lingered in front of the TV well into the night. His plan was to wait until Jessica fell asleep to discreetly check her phone. Upon finally accessing the phone, he sifted through her social media and messenger apps, yet found nothing to arouse suspicion. However, in the corner of the desktop, an application with an unfamiliar icon caught his eye. Upon clicking it, he was ushered into the realm of virtual dating. Stephen stood there astounded. Had Jessica resented him so much that she decided to cheat on him? He didn't see that coming. Feeding through the app, Stephen stumbled upon his wife's exchanges with others, frequently couples proposing that she join them as a third party. There was no evidence within messages to suggest that any encounters had taken place. The discovery left Stephen reeling as if he had been struck on the head. He just minimized all of the open applications since he had no idea what to do with this information. Having learned such details about his spouse, Stephen tried to communicate with her as usual, so as not to give himself away, but it didn't work very well. She took offense, and they didn't speak for days on end. This allowed Stephen to consider his next steps to find out whether or not his wife was going to these meetings. The mystery unraveled one evening when Jessica had informed Stephen she would be spending the night at a friend's place and departed. Stephen knew she wasn't really going to her friend's house. In all their years of marriage, she had never stayed out for a night because she felt uneasy about it. He naturally wondered why she had altered her decision. Jessica explained that her friend was facing personal difficulties, and she felt the need to be there for her. Stephen didn't probe any deeper. When his wife returned the next night, her spirit seemed lifted. All was well. He greeted her with a smile. "I'm doing well," Jessica responded. He would have liked to hear more information, specifics about what had transpired at her. Jessica had always told him about such things in the past. However, she decided that she didn't want to talk about it any longer and went to the bathroom. With great force, Stephen squeezed the plastic milk bottle. The white liquid spilled out onto the floor. The man was actively brainstorming ways to catch his wife cheating as he cleaned up the spill. Stephen was now without access to the information because she had taken her phone with her and into the bathroom. He bided his time until Jessica was soundly sleeping once more before he reopened the ill-fated dating app. His intuition had been correct. His wife had indeed made a visit to a couple's residence that very night. The couple had left her a message praising the enjoyable evening, along with an invitation for another visit. Stephen tightened his jaw. It seemed to him that just a little more and he would explode with anger. He scored the messages for the address he needed to visit and jotted it down, determined to investigate. It was a private residence, located on the other side of the city. The man resolved that the next time Jessica planned to stay overnight at a friend's, he would personally drive by the house to confirm it for himself. Soon enough, within a fortnight, the wife again announced her desire to spend the night away from home. Stephen consented. He bid her goodnight, estimated when Jessica would reach her destination, and drove off. He found her car parked outside the house mentioned in the app. Parking a short distance away, he deliberated whether he should approach and knock on their door. Stephen gazed up at the windows, debating whether to wait all night for Jessica to emerge or to take action. Suddenly, a light flickered on in the windows of the second floor. He caught a glimpse of two figures, one helping the other remove their clothes. Stephen recognized his wife by the shadow of her curly hair. A surge of anger and the urge to cause chaos overwhelmed him, but he knew that storming into the house would only lead to trouble. He stayed in his vehicle, watching as the lights continued to shine and shadows moved about. Exhausted and seething with anger, Stephen finally decided to try and enter the house. He pressed the doorbell repeatedly, his finger growing tired from the effort. After what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open and a man's head appeared. The man demanded that Stephen leave immediately or face the police being called. Stephen raised his voice, explaining that he only wanted to see his wife and meant no harm. After a brief silence, the door opened wider and Stephen saw the small figure of the homeowner, who appeared much older than his years. Stephen was perplexed by the thought of his vibrant and lovely wife choosing such a partner. He felt disgusted by the mental image that came to mind. "I want to see Jessica," Stephen said firmly. "Her car's outside your house." He heard his wife's voice and saw her emerge from the doorway. She looked completely different, with heavy makeup and wearing a silk outfit and stockings. Her husband commanded her to return home, giving her only 15 minutes. Jessica nodded and quickly reappeared, now dressed and carrying a gym bag. Back at home, their argument escalated to the point where the neighbors had to intervene and ask for quiet. Jessica cried out that Stephen was the one who forced her to take this action. "I asked you if I could do everything with you," she repeated. Stephen was bewildered by the idea that his denial could lead her to infidelity. He believed that no normal married person would act in such a way. "I'll take you to court for everything you have," he threatened. "You'll end up with nothing out on the streets." After saying this, Jessica grabbed her bag and slammed the door. The neighbors yelled once more. Stephen collapsed onto the sofa, motionless and staring off into space. He knew that Jessica would follow through with her plans, especially with her father being a lawyer. After the divorce, Stephen found himself with only his car and a small part of the money his former father-in-law had given him for the apartment. The man was furious. All he knew about his ex-wife Jessica was that she'd gotten into all kinds of trouble and had never married again. Stephen had been informed by her friend that Jessica was seeing other people, not just couples. He asked her never to mention her ex-wife or her current situation again. The idea that his beloved lady was suddenly acting in this way appalled him. He was not interested in hearing any more about her. All he wanted was for it to fade away like a terrible dream. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. And if you liked it, please support us with a like and subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story.